Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Google Educators Group High Plains Hangout on air for the Google Science Fair 101. Dr. Andrea Burrows is on her way to join us, so until then, I just want to get some things started, get the Q&A panel up, and get some folks to check in and let me know if you can hear me all right. Feel free to ask questions at any time. We will address those as we get a chance. And just to give you an idea of how today's going to go, we're going to take up to an hour. We may not go a full hour for this session, but up to an hour. You'll get a quick preview over what secondary science ed and teacher development here at the University of Wyoming looks like. And then we'll go into the science fair. We're going to do an overview. So what are the rules for the science fair? The timeline, very important information, how students can enter the science fair, and then we'll take a look at some other resources for teachers and parents, exact lesson plans that you can use in your classroom or even at home with your student. And then we'll take a look at the really cool feature that Google has implemented called the Idea Springboard. So with that in mind, before we really get going, are there any questions out there from the audience that you'd like us to address, or something that you'd like to see us cover that maybe I didn't mention specifically in that agenda? Of course, related to the Q&A panel, you don't always have to ask a question. You can simply leave a comment. We may announce those live just to share that with the audience. But if you do have questions unrelated to the Google Science Fair, if it's a question about science education at the University of Wyoming, a question about the Google Educator Group High Plains, what we do, how we function, you're welcome to ask those questions. And as Dr. Burrows joins me, we'll get into some more detailed introductions so that you can learn a little bit more about me, your host, Dr. Tonia Dousay, and Dr. Burrows. It looks like I've gotten one question not in the QA panel. It was sent directly to me, and that is, what is the Google Educator Group? Well, it's a great question. We are a community on Google+, and it is where educators interested in sharing resources and even exploring how they can get active looking at technology tools in the classroom. So please head over to Google+ at any time and look for the Google Educators Group High Plains. We technically serve the greater Wyoming, Montana, North Dakota, and South Dakota area. And we try to focus. We do have moderators that are in different states. If you are in one of those states and would like to take an active role in our group, planning events, sharing resources, please feel free to contact one of us. We have our information posted in the group. And we do have one comment, so I'd like to say hi to Ed Olson with the Wyoming Department of Education who is tuning in. And with that, I have my co-presenter with me. You want to grab a chair and pull on over? Absolutely. So as I mentioned, I am Dr. Tonia Dousay. I'm in the Instructional Technology program here at the University of Wyoming. I teach our pre-service teachers, and I focus on technology integration and exploration. And I have with me Dr. Andrea Burrows.
Hi, everybody.
And she coordinates our secondary science education program here at the university. So I want to put in a couple of plugs real quick. I mentioned the High Plains Google Educator Group, but every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Mountain, you can also tune in on Twitter to participate in the Wyo Ed Chat. Just this last weekend, we had a great conversation about what does it mean for student engagement and how do we observe and measure that as educators. So always stay tuned. We make lots of announcements in there as well. But with that, I'd like to turn this over to Dr. Burrows, and we're going to share some slides that she has prepared to talk about. But until then, you want to give us some background?
Absolutely. So I work here in secondary science education and have some say in a couple of different areas. So I thought I'd give some overviews. And then if there are questions about anything, then I can go back and answer those specific questions. So this is kind of just an overview of different kinds of opportunities here at the University of Wyoming. There on the screen, you can see my Twitter if you'd like to add that or send anything my way, and also my email address. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is certification. So there's two ways to get Wyoming certification here at the university. One is through an undergraduate degree, and this is specifically for science that I'm speaking of now. So it's a 4-year degree program, and we have that in biology, in chemistry, physics, Earth Science, Earth System Science, and then Earth Science Geology. And then we also have a post-baccalaureate or post-bac program, and that's for any individual that has graduated with a STEM degree and they're interested in teaching one of those areas of science. They can come back for 3 semesters, which is a summer, a fall, and a spring. And as long as the content courses are completed, then they will get their Wyoming certification. And that does include student teaching. The post-bac program is not a degree program. It's just a certification program, where the 4-year program, of course, is a degree program. Next, I'll talk a little bit about SWARMS funding. So I'm the PI of an NSF NOIS grant. It's called SWARMS, which stands for Sustaining Wyoming's Advancing Reach in Mathematics and Science. And if you know of anyone that is interested in getting a Wyoming teaching certification in science or mathematics, then I have funding for the next 3 years to allow them to get that Wyoming teaching certification. If there's an undergraduate that's interested in teaching and they're an undergraduate in a STEM field, I can actually pay for their senior year. And of course, this isn't me. This is the NSF grant that's paying for their senior year of STEM work. And then for their post-bac, those 3 semesters, that NOIS grant can pay for those 3 semesters, which is that summer, fall, and spring. In priority order, the state of Wyoming needs physics teachers, followed by chemistry, followed by earth science, and then mathematics and biology are kind of in the same category. So just in terms of the numbers of teachers that we need, that's the priority. If anyone that you know is interested, or if you're interested, you can go to uwswarms.org. The application is there, and there's some information as well. Something else that we have to offer is professional development. There are a bunch of professional development opportunities at the university, so this is just a very few, and these are the few that I'm personally involved with. There's information at uwpd.org, and you can sign up for these at uwpd.org as well. So right now, the 2 that are coming up most quickly, I guess, the first one is Saturday, May the 2nd. It's the Artful Craft of Science, and we lovingly refer to it as tacos. Teachers get paid $150 for the day. We'll be making photograms and learning about new ways to teach chemistry. It's for all grade levels, K through 12 teachers. Another opportunity is June 29th through July the 10th. You do get July 3rd, 4th, and 5th off, by the way, so you still get a holiday in there. And you get paid $150 per day. So for 9 days, I believe that's $1,350. So that's a pretty good way to spend 2 weeks. And teachers can learn about ways to use astronomy in STEM classrooms. And again, that's for any teacher, K through 12. We also have some student opportunities. For example, there's a STEM summer camp, that Artful Craft of Science, tacos again. It'll be June 15th to 19th, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. daily. It's a free program for students, upcoming 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. They do get lunch, and they also will make photograms and learn about chemistry. And some of those teachers, hopefully, that come and work with us on May the 2nd, will join us again in the summer to work with the students. There's so many opportunities. I just didn't have enough space and or time to talk about them. So I did put a link down here where it says other opportunities at the uyo.edu/ystem. There's so many different things happening across campus. So I just want to thank you. And if you have questions, like I said, I'll be glad to answer those maybe a little bit later on.
Thank you, Dr. Burrows.
Thank you.
Related to what Dr. Burrows was just talking about, do we have any specific questions that we can answer live? And feel free to put those in. This is a conversation of sorts. Think of it like a podcast, if you will, but you can call in. It's a radio show. And we'll try our best to entertain you at the same time. Anything you didn't get to mention you'd like to bring up? Something that wasn't on the slides?
Just that we're always looking for teachers that are interested in professional developments and districts that are interested in professional developments. If you'd like to work with anyone or your district or school has a need, you're welcome to contact either Dr. Dousay or myself. And we will, if we can't work with you, then we'll try to get you in contact with someone that can. One of the parts of our job, sometimes that people don't know about, is that we want to be out in the schools, and we want to be working with people, and we want to be learning what's happening in your world and sharing what's happening in ours. So if you ever have any needs at all, please reach out. We would be very happy to work with you. Yeah, absolutely.
So with that, we'll transition a little bit and see if we can dig into the Google Science Fair and take a look at what this is. So let me get up our screen share again, and this time we'll be looking not necessarily at a PowerPoint, but a website. And again, if you have any questions throughout this, please let us know. We're happy to answer questions. Or if there's something that you think of later, please feel free to email Dr. Burrows or myself. We will share my contact information. Hers was up there earlier. There we go. Now we're ready. So on screen, you should be seeing the main website for the Google Science Fair. This is a really great opportunity that Google has launched. This is not the first year that we have had the Science Fair, which is kind of nice. That means that as educators, you can go through and look at past projects and past award winners so that you can share those with your students. So let's see if we can pull up one of their videos about the competition and just kind of getting started with how you might get interested. You can see that they've developed a very nice layout that goes through all sorts of aspects, whether it's planning, it's brainstorming, it's just really getting started with what is the science fair and how do you go about it. So I'm going to pretend as though we're just coming to the website for the first time. That way you can experience that. So their tagline is, "It's your turn to change the world."
Scientists, technologists, innovators, they're just like you. They love trying things, uncertain things, ambitious things, things that sound as crazy in our heads as they do out loud. Those are the things that make us get up and brush our teeth and go risk our reputation on a hunch. Trying something new is the only way to make the next great whatever. And the best part is, we all know how to do it. When you were a baby, you unsuccessfully tried that new walking thing for like 4 months. And now you walk like a champion. Same with talking, swimming, riding a bike. The desire to try new things is built into you. Now take that desire, apply some science, and get ready to change the world. From Earth's brightest builders to our bravest explorers. Every accomplishment, every accolade, every bit of this round of applause started with a love of trying things. Apple tried submarines, Lovelace tried algorithms. But now it's your turn. What will you try?
Throughout the Google Science Fair website, they have actually put together a series of great inspirational videos that you can have students watch in class. You can play during parent-teacher nights to try to get everyone excited about this idea of the Google Science Fair. I do want to mention that I have been asked previously about whether or not students can use any type of science project that they've already submitted, perhaps for a local science fair or a state science fair. Now, the roundabout answer to that question is that yes, they can use those projects. However, they're going to have to repurpose it to fit the guidelines of the Google Science Fair. And we're going to dig into some of those guidelines here in a little bit. I do want to answer a question that has popped up from Corey Freed about similar grant opportunities near Philadelphia for STEM and science integration. You know, Corey, I'm not certain about that, but I know that Dr. Burrows would be able to help us get you that information. So I'm going to make a note of that, and I'll get back in touch with you. Okay, so let's dig into the Google Science Fair. I'm going to share my screen again so that we can go back to the website, because I really want you to be able to experience what the Google Science Fair website has to offer. So when you come to the website, you can click on the video just to get started and get active in the getting anybody else interested. As you can see, there are a number of national sponsors. Lego, National Geographic, Scientific American, and Virgin Galactic are sponsoring this competition. And I do want to point out something fairly important that's on the screen, because it's a question that has actually come up outside of any preparation or planning. And that is that your student must be 13 to 18 years old to enter this competition. I know that I was asked recently on Twitter about whether or not a 4th grader could participate. And unfortunately, unless you have a 13-year-old 4th grader, the answer is no. However, I would absolutely challenge our science teachers in the elementary and middle grades as you work on these local science fairs. Take a look at the Google Science Fair lesson plans and rules. Maybe you can implement a local version that follows the same format. That way, when these students do reach age 13, they're prepared to enter this competition. And they already know what those rules are going to look like and what those submission guidelines are going to look like. So just an idea that I've been trying to plant with some of our teachers. The rules. Ah, yes, they are important. There is a nice PDF that is on the Google website. I'm actually going to grab this link and see about showcasing it on the side here. And I will make that visible now. There we go. So, and you can actually dig through the website and you'll be able to get to this PDF as a parent or a teacher or as a school administrator. The rules are always important. So obviously they give you a nice little table that breaks down what are those major events. So the open call for submissions actually came out February 18th. And you'll notice that it ends on Monday, May 18th. So it's a narrow window. Unfortunately, here we are at April 14th. That challenge in the spring semester, how do you integrate something like this into your classroom? For some of you, it may not be that you can implement this right now. You may have to implement it next year. But by the fact of tuning in live or watching this later, you're getting ahead of the game. You're trying to get together some resources related to the Google Science Fair that you could use in your classroom. If you have the ability and the time to implement this now, more power to you. And if there's some way that Dr. Burrows and I can help you with that, even if it's just brainstorming, please let us know. They will be announcing the regional finalists for the competition on Tuesday, July 7th, just after the 4th of July holiday. There will be 20 global finalists announced August 4th, and then the finalist event winners will be announced in September, so into that fall, beginning of the school year. As you scroll through these rules, you'll see some other very important information. Eligibility. I mentioned the age range, 13 to 18 years old. They do specify that they cannot enter the competition until they turn 13. So they've got dates on there specifically. If your student is born between February 19th, 1996 and February 18th, 2002, then they are eligible to enter this competition. Of course, being minors, we do have to have parent or guardian consent. The system is configured so that when an individual or a teen creates their profile on the website, and we'll take a look at that, then it will actually contact the parent or guardian to get request for participation. If that release is not completed, it is my understanding that the entry will not be considered complete and will not be entered into the competition. You also notice that this is an international global competition. This is where our students get to compete against the world. Of course, there are some countries where it is not eligible, and those are listed. But then how do you enter the competition? So these go into the finer details. The website's a little bit more user-friendly as opposed to reading legalese speak in a document. But it does give us some good background information. You can enter as an individual, so any 13 to 18-year-old student can have a self-entry, or they can enter into groups. And that's something that a lot of teachers, I think, are trying to grab onto, is this idea of science and collaboration and how to enter as a group in this competition. So projects are also going to be judged based on age groups. So that's another question that I've seen pop up. They are splitting the competition into age groups of 13 to 15 years old and 16 to 18 years old, and that is based on the entrance age as of February 18th, 2015. Now, my understanding is for groups, they will take the oldest participant in the group. So that's something to keep in mind. It'll break it out so that you can see the differences between individual and team. So of course the age requirements do fit the team as well. All parents of a team have to consent, not just one. But here's the cool part. A team can be comprised of entrants from different schools. So maybe you have a family member at a different school in your state or even in a different state. That doesn't mean that they can't enter together as a team. So it might be kind of fun to see how that works together dynamically. And here is that guideline. The oldest team member determines category placement. So that's something that you definitely want to keep in mind there. They do have the specifics on how to enter, and of course that parent and guardian consent for the team. Subject areas. This is always a fun topic for discussion as well. Let me get the Q&A panel back up so I don't miss any questions that come in. So in terms of subjects, they are dividing subjects. You pick one topic. So as a group or a team or an individual, sorry, decides that they want to enter a project, then they're going to take a look at these categories and pick one to be the main topic. I'm not going to read them all to you. I will let you take an opportunity to read them now if you so choose, or read them later. But you can also pick up to 2 subtopics. So it could be that the project is dealing with something in the lines of bioengineering. So you might have some crossover and you're going to do a little bit of biology and maybe with a little bit of computer science if you're doing some programming. So definitely have a conversation with your students or your student teams about how they want to approach this and what topics they want to choose. And then of course there is a template through the project site that students will use. There is a first section where they'll complete a summary, an overview of that project. There's also an optional addition to the summary where they can create a 2-minute video. It must be hosted on YouTube and the video must be public. It cannot be private or unlisted. Or the student can create a Google slideshow. Again, it has to be created using Google Slides that are available through Google Drive. And again, it must be publicly available. That's something I do want to take a moment to explain. I've had a question about why is the age range? Why do the rules stipulate that students must be 13 to 18 years old? And that's for a number of reasons, one of which that I find to be very important. The terms of service for Google services and most other cloud computing services begins at age 13. And a lot of this is rooted in US federal guidelines, such as COPA, which controls how websites and companies can use data collected off of minor users. So that's something to keep in mind. It's not that they're trying to exclude students who are younger than 13 years old. We're just trying to play by the rules. So the second section is the About Me, and that's where the student introduces themselves or their team if they're working in a group. And then they have to describe their questions. So what are we talking about here? Now, the nice thing about the setup for the Google Science Fair is that it looks at both the scientific method and design method. So how do we think about design thinking? So students are encouraged to explore their topic in one of those 2 areas, and we'll look at those resources on the Science Fair website here in a moment. But that's something that we want to make sure that the students who participate are thinking about how are they going to work through this investigative process? What is their hypothesis or problem that they're trying to solve? And what's that outcome? What do we expect to happen based off of what we know? So really reinforcing a lot of these concepts in the science classroom. So then the next section is that of research. So detailing what research that they've done into that category and how that influenced their project overall. Section 5 deals with their methodology. And it's kind of funny if you are a graduate student or perhaps you've completed a graduate degree and you've written a thesis or a dissertation. It's kind of fun how these mirror and you can think back to your own experiences. The last section, or excuse me, section 6 is results. And then the last section is the conclusion or the report. So how did the experiment answer the question? And if it failed to answer the question, whether or not the outcome was as expected, trying to explain those results as we work with our students and move them through this entire process. So they do go into breaking down the competition and what does that region mean, and then looking at category awards. The grand prize winner will take home a very lovely scholarship. I believe it's to the tune of $50,000. If it is a team, that prize is divided among the team members, and that is a scholarship to be used towards whatever continuing education purpose that the student chooses at a later time. I just want to take a moment here to kind of stop and see if there are some other questions out there, or if there's other concerns that haven't been brought up. I do want to mention also that if you were not able to see the slides that Dr. Burrows presented earlier in the introduction, they are available on uwpd.org. So you can have access to that information there as well. So next up, we're going to talk about kind of the timeline, because it's more than just deadlines. As you can see from the website, you can see historically what's been going on in the month of April. There have been some hangouts, as noted by this yellow chat icon with the quotation marks. So there have been some hangouts that have already occurred. If you're tuning in live or watching this in the next couple of hours or day, there is an event coming up on the 17th. It's another hangout on design thinking and hands-on opportunities, looking at that information with Pell Peterson. There's also an event later this month on the 24th, so about a week and a half away, a hangout looking at the Google Science Fair 2015 with Virgin Galactic, and specifically targeting girls and aerodynamic research. Of course, the deadline is May 19th, and then they have the other deadlines as well for the finalists being announced. As you scroll down this competition overview deadlines and dates page, they give you lots of other links. There's even an FAQ that I highly recommend you check out if you have the time and the opportunity to do so. Always checking back to see if I'm missing a question before I move on. So let's take a look at the parent and teacher resources that are available. So when you are on the Google Science Fair website, there is a link at the top of the page specifically for parents and teachers. There is a starter kit that you can launch. It's a lovely little PDF. And you can scale it up or down. You can download it. But this has a lot of information to help you think about getting inspired, and just kind of a general overview of how you might think about the science fair. But also on the page, this is one of my favorite parts, lesson plans. Every teacher can always use some support when we ask you to do something new in the classroom, but we don't expect you to do it without any help. So they've broken this down into age ranges. So you can look at the 17 to 18, the 15 to 16, the 13 to 14 to really help target the students based off of the age groups in the competition. So the nice thing is you can click on lesson plans. You get this nice clean layout that gives you an outline, objectives, how you're addressing scientific attitudes, experimental investigative skills, analytical and evaluative processes. They give you broad objectives for the lesson plan, and they even break it out into time commitment, what is the teacher doing at that moment, and what is the student doing at that moment, along with some external resources. There is a Google Science Fair YouTube channel. Highly recommend you look at ways that you might be able to implement that in your classroom, or at least giving it and sharing that resource so that students can see what's out there and get some project ideas. So this goes through, and it even gives you some homework assignments that are tied to the lesson plans, but aren't necessarily just meant to be busy work. It's to help them work through the process and complete the components of the application on the website. So as you look through the page, there's actually 2 lessons in this 17 to 18 age range. But there's also worksheets. So they give you worksheets to look at how will you implement this in the classroom. And I love this concept that they have. I like having the student think about what are their interests and hobbies. Now this is where I really get excited, because as a scholar and as a researcher, interest and motivation are important to me. So having your students really think about what do they like as their hobbies? What am I good at? And then what am I trying to change about the world around me? And then how do you bring that all together? So this is a great time for me to show you as I close these extra tabs, the idea springboard from Google. This is a really great concept that I think they've taken this same concept from their worksheets and actually put it into an electronic search format. So we're going to say that I love, and we're actually going to just follow some of their prompts. I love music. There's a nice drop-down box that picks different subject areas. And I'm good at energy and space. When I was a kid, I wanted to be an astronaut. And I want to try, and you can go through and look at some of the topics that they've pre-selected. So I think I saw one at the top about acoustics. I'm going to hit search. What this does is conduct a behind-the-scenes Google search and then give you the results in a visual layout. And I can use this whether I'm a student trying to get inspiration or a teacher trying to help students with inspiration, to think about what am I trying to get at. So spooky science, unexplained sounds from the deep. We can click on that link. It launches in a new tab so that we don't lose our search results. We can come back to that tab anytime. But here's a really cool article on live science. It was published October of 2012 about unexplained sounds from the deep. So maybe I want to see as a student, can I help explain some of these sounds, or can I work on some other research? If any of you followed the probe landing on the comet, they actually released on SoundCloud a recording of the sound that was being made as the comet was flying through space, and it was very musical. Or on the other side, if you're a fan of the Predator movies, it sounded a bit like an alien. But it could be interesting to have students take that sound bite off of SoundCloud and create some sort of science experiment around it, to either explain it or find a way to use it. Any type of activity you can dream up, it's a possibility. So if we go back to the teacher resources, they also have posters. This is another PDF. You can scale these, you can print these to use in your classroom, you can hang them in the hallway, but they do a really nice job of bringing to life this idea, the spirit behind the competition. Computing was a pretty basic idea, and then Ada Lovelace tried an algorithm. The ocean was just for fish, and then Drebel tried a submarine. Some of these you might have heard in the opening video. This is one of my favorites. Humans weren't built to fly, but then the White brothers tried wings. You never know what you're going to get, and I think that the spirit behind this competition is to help challenge our students to think outside the box and to really take a look at the world around them. I've had faculty in my own career and mentors throughout the world who say that every problem is a design problem. So maybe we just need to think about this in a different way. So speaking of design problems, we're going to take a look at and close some of these extra tabs now that we don't need them. We're going to go to how to enter on the website, because this gives you a really nice breakdown, 1 through 5. Before you get started, getting an idea, setting up your experiment, building out your project site, and then what are they looking for in the judging. So there's even a student pack section that you can share with your students that really helps them dig into the content and think about these areas. So this mirrors the submission form. There is the first area that we kind of talked about in the rules. So this is actually geared towards the student. This is something that you can share with them electronically or print this off as a handout to use in your classroom to get them on that path. They do have experiment resources as well. But it's just kind of fun to explore these different areas. There's more videos.
Hello, young scientist.
This one is clearly targeted towards the students and not just globally to generate interest. But it walks you through before you get started to get that Google account created so that you can use YouTube and Google Slides and sign in. They give some top tips for students. I love this one, think like a judge. It's always good to think about the criteria ahead of time so that you're designing to meet those needs. They even talk about using Google Tools, so how you're going to be building this out with Google Docs, with Google Sheets, Google Slides, using Drive as a whole, and then also Google Hangouts as you collaborate. especially if you think about how do you connect with students in other areas. Hangouts are a great way. It doesn't have to be on air or live, just a hangout so that you can talk real time and plan out what you're working on. Lots of great resources on this website. I can't stress enough how fun it is just to kind of play with it. So back again under experimenting, it gives another link to the official rules. There's the student pack that we just looked at, and then experiment resources. So this is a great page that I cannot emphasize enough that needs to be shared. So just to reinforce that, we're going to put this in the showcase box so that it is accessible and easy to get to. So on this page, it actually gives you links out to sciencebuddies.org. Great, fantastic resource as a teacher if you don't already use it. But to get you thinking about the scientific method, and as I mentioned earlier, the engineering design process. It doesn't matter whether your student is interested in language arts or chemistry. These are both great ideas and ways to get them learning a process. I kind of liken it to the outline when you're in language arts. You've got to have a framework to start with. And while we all may roll our eyes and groan, an outline has a purpose, as does a method. It gives you a systematic approach to go down this path. So in terms of the difference between these two ideas, the scientific method is probably one that most of us are familiar with. We had to learn it when we were in school. We had to work through experiments, and we had to talk about, okay, I have a question. I need to go do a little bit of research. I'm going to make a hypothesis based off of that research that says, I expect this to happen based off of my research. Now I'm going to test it with an experiment, and then I'm going to analyze that information and draw a conclusion. Was my hypothesis correct or not? On the flip side, the engineering design process is more about identifying a problem, doing that research, brainstorming multiple ways to solve that problem, using any specific requirements that may put constraints on the project, choosing the best solution from all those ideas that we came up with, developing it out to build a prototype, test it, and then fix what doesn't work. So two different approaches to identifying a problem, solving it, or proposing potential solutions. They also walk students through how do I form my question for my proposal? How do I conduct my research depending on which method I'm working under? How do I test it, formulate that hypothesis, conduct an experiment, build out my prototype, evaluate my prototype, and then how do I address my results and my conclusions? Close to the very end, you're working on that final report, and then of course that bibliography, references, and acknowledgments. All elements of scientific method, the design process, but that fit into how do you put together a science fair project. So we're going to go back to the main page. The first step a student has to do is to register. So when you click that link,
hello, young,
it'll take you back to this first getting started page that we were on earlier for the overview. Obviously, the student will select whether they have a Google account or not. I'm going to click I'm ready to register, just so that you can see what this looks like. So when they register, that's where they put in their name, their date of birth, their country, their state, and their team code. If you're registering as a team, that is very important. The first person does not enter a team code. Later on in this application, it will generate that code that can be given to other users. And then as you work through the process, it will actually create those pages for students to enter their information and work through this process. So with that, I've stopped the screen share. I'll switch back over to our Q&A just to see if I've missed anything since putting up the showcase. And we are right at about 40 minutes for this Hangout. We've had some folks coming and going, and now is kind of your last chance. If you've got any specific questions, if I did not show something on the website or did not explain something, please feel free to ask that now. Otherwise, I can wish you all happy science fairing and offer up my contact information as well. So you can see my name on screen. It is Tonia Dousay. My email address is tdousay@uwyo.edu, or you can find me on Twitter. My username is TADousay on Twitter, and I'm happy to answer any questions there, provide feedback, help you brainstorm, or help you connect with someone else who might have the same questions or be looking for similar resources. So with that in mind, I don't see any questions popping up in the Q&A panel. I will sign off and wish you all a fantastic afternoon and good luck with your science fairs.